brethren kind and good. So I'll keep moving on. I won't stop now. I'll keep moving on till I reach the top somehow. That I will achieve, because I do the things I should, between my brethren kind and good. So I'll keep moving on. I won't stop now. I'll keep moving on till I reach the top somehow.
Oh yes, my Straight Talk family, whenever you hear that theme song, then you know it's time for another edition of Straight Talk, and time for me to say greetings to the entire world. And of course, charity begins at home, so I'll say greetings to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, 2 islands, 1 lovely paradise, and of course, by extension, to all in the entire Caribbean region. And we welcome all to Straight Talk, and we thank those who continue to share the link, my Straight Talk family. And whenever you do, we have first-timers. And we welcome our first-timers, and we inform you that Straight Talk is a public service program that facilitates and promotes free, underline free expression on all issues of national interest, be they legal, be they environmental, be they technological, social, economic, and or political issues. On this program, we try to raise the level of national, international, and regional consciousness as well. We try to raise the level of discourse by alerting all our people to their rights, to their responsibilities, and certainly to their obligations. My name is Ian Patches Liburd, and I thank Almighty God for blessing me with yet another opportunity to join you in conversation on yet another occasion. And as I said, we are all across the globe. So I'll hail the folks in the Kittitian and Nevisian and Caribbean diaspora. There are some of you in Asia. There are some of you in Africa. There are some of you in Europe. And there are a whole lot of you all over North America. So I'm at liberty to say good night. Let me say good morning. And I'm at liberty as well to say good afternoon, because one of such greetings will be applicable to the region in which you now find yourselves. And for those who may be joining me again for the first time, as your host, I pledge to remain an untiring advocate of truthfulness. As I always am reminded by the words of a favorite hymn of mine written by Thomas Jackson and Franz Joseph Haydn, which goes something like this, an excerpt: we are all called to be God's people, or prophets, speaking for the truth and the right, standing firm for godly justice, bringing evil things to light. So let's seek the courage needed, our high calling to fulfill, that we all may know the blessing of the doing of God's will. So my Straight Talk family, in particular the first-timers, absolutely nothing is watered down on this program. To make it more interesting, not by omission or exaggeration. Straight Talk is not about sensationalism or creating excitement, especially at the expense of accuracy, because we lean on the facts, as it is my duty to present the unvarnished truth, the plain truth, especially when it comes to governance wherever we are on this globe. And this program joins us together with people across our federation. Through this program, we are joined with people in the diaspora all around the world. Some we know very well and have met. Others we do not know, and many we will never meet. Some will agree with the positions of truth we advance on Straight Talk, and some will disagree. And that's fine, because we promote something called a diversity of views. But what will sadden me is if we become disagreeable. So let's thank Almighty God nonetheless for helping us to understand, oh, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. Let's therefore hope and pray for the day when we will all sing his praise together. So welcome again, my people, and thanks for those who share the link as you bring first-timers. Please continue to do so. And for the first-timers, if you love it, tell the whole world. If you don't, please tell me. And just to let you know that Straight Talk is a participative program. By that I mean we include your calls and your emails. And if you're so minded, calling, the numbers are on your screens. Very clear. There's some of you who like what I call the cloak of anonymity. We give you access, therefore, via our email platform. And those who have the Alexa app as well, we are heard live on Alexa. All you have to say Alexa, play Massive Vibes Radio. Thanks to my brother who gives us that access at a modest cost. And some of you, as we speak about costs, have made donations to support our efforts here on Straight Talk. I thank you. I must also reassure you that no matter what size is your contribution, it will help us to continue this important service. Others who wish to donate can simply scan that code on your screen to access a payment form. It's a very simple process, and you can access that form and you can get it done and over in under 2 minutes, I'm sure. So thank you again for your support, and those I thank you in advance and for helping us to keep this dialogue alive. And we cannot forget our junior brigade. These young ones, they hail me, they meet me, they greet me. Young Dwayne, Tristan, Shamar, Kevin, Young Rue, Jamal, Travis, Travon, and my grandson named, I know if I don't call him, I'll be in trouble, Saraya. I heard Saraya is not around, but Saraya, we hail her as well. And a special lady in St. Louis. And my Straight Talk family, we usually begin with our observations in review, which is an integral part of our program. Then we move into a thesis. But following our thesis, we include your calls, your emails, as mentioned earlier, and allow your full participation. As yes, we give you an opportunity to have your say. But tonight though is exceptional, as we have a topic guest, but we also have a special guest with whom we will discuss this topic, which is titled The Genesis and Current State of the St. Kitts and Nevis CBI program. Because of that, we are going to forego our observations in review and move straight to our guest, who is already online. And I say good night to my guest, Mr. Kenneth Rijock. Are you hearing me, Kenneth? If you're hearing me, say good night.
Good night, sir.
And I trust that you are well.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
And we welcome you to Straight Talk. And Kenneth Rijock is the author of The Laundryman, which is a true crime memoir. Mr. Rijock, could you tell all of us who are viewing, listening, or looking, as we say, at Straight Talk right now, who is Kenneth Rijock? Can you tell us that?
Well, thank you, Ian. For those of you who don't read my work, my name is Kenneth Rijock, and I'm a financial crime consultant living and working in Miami for the past half a century, but with an awful lot of trips down to the East Caribbean, including but not limited to St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I started out in life as a bank lawyer in Miami, in the only Miami law firm with a branch in London and a branch in New York. After I opened up my own legal practice, I spent 10 years of my life as a career money launderer throughout the Caribbean, including in your neighborhood. And as a result of that, after having worked for a number of clients in the US and Canada and Europe, I spent 2 years in federal prison for money laundering, at which point I decided basically to start teaching people how to catch people like me. So for the past 30 years, I have written thousands of articles about financial crime. I have lectured to banks, law enforcement, and the intelligence community in the US, Canada, and in Europe, worked in more than 100 countries, and I'm basically on a mission. My mission is how to stop money laundering in real time. My experience, of course, includes St. Kitts, and that's why we're here today.
Tell me something. Let's get back to that book nonetheless, right? Your book, A True Crime, is a true crime memoir, I will call it, that tells the story or chronicles the double life you've lived. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. My story basically talks about how I lived a double life as a real estate lawyer in Miami, whereas at the same time, simultaneously, I was traveling back and forth to the tax havens of the Caribbean, to Europe, and around the world, laundering hundreds of millions of dollars for my clients, who were all narcotics traffickers, selling cocaine, marijuana, and anything else that was a valuable commodity on the streets of New York or anywhere in North America.
So you live what I call a lavish lifestyle by day. You laundered money, or millions rather, in drug money by night. And eventually, you turn, based on what I've read, into an informant for the U.S. government. Now, Mr. Rijock, what caused that transformation, may I ask? Was it to get out of prison? You say you spent 2 years in prison. What caused that transformation?
Well, sir, I started out on the government side. I'd been a soldier before I became a lawyer. Frankly, the reason I went to prison wasn't because I was caught in the act moving dirty money. A number of my clients were looking at life in prison, and they decided that they would rather inform against their lawyer and their accountant rather than never see the light of day again. So my change of heart basically was that 6 months after I was sent to prison, somebody from the U.S. Marshal Service came up to me in prison and said, listen, you made a wrong turn here. You started out in life, soldier, lawyer, but then you made some mistakes. You need to go back to the right side of the street. And that's how I started moving from being a criminal to being a financial crime consultant. And that's how my sentence was reduced. And that's how I went back on the street to try to make amends for what I had done.
Now, you are at present, or you are in fact invited, as we mentioned earlier, to discuss the topic that is hotly debated here in St. Kitts and Nevis and in the Eastern Caribbean, particularly in the OECS, Grenada, Dominica, St. Lucia, and St. Lucia, as it relates to the CBI program. Now, Straight Talk has learned that you were very integral to the pioneering, if I can use that term, of the CBI, the Citizenship by Investment program, here in St. Kitts and Nevis, which dates back some 42 years, if mathematics, which is my strongest weak point, is correct. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, sir, it is. Fortunately, because of my years in the region, I happen to have been, I guess you might say, at the right place at the right time. To start at the beginning of the story, back in the late 1970s, I traveled to Dominica, which was then in the corrupt business of selling passports to individuals who might not otherwise have an ability to travel around the world on a low-risk passport. Based upon my experiences in Dominica, oh, by the way, of course, their dirty passport selling program caused the government to collapse and caused some real problems which took them years to resolve. But back to the story. In the early 1980s, I had contact with William Herbert, more commonly known as Billy, who, of course, you know, was a lawyer in St. Kitts as well as in Anguilla prior to St. Kitts becoming independent. And in my travels and exchanges with him, because I had clients interested in tax-free businesses, I had occasion to explain to him how the Dominica project had operated. And I can only think that I contributed somewhat to his concept about finding a way in which to get additional cash into the government's budget by the use of the second passport program. Fast forward to the early 1980s, I then hear from Billy Herbert that he has created the program and that it's about to be operational. And would my clients be interested in becoming some of the original applicants? Now, backtrack a second and understand that my clients were all narcotics traffickers from North America. I had spent the last couple years of my life traveling back and forth to the Caribbean from Miami, involved in what is known as bulk cash smuggling and the movement of financial instruments from the United States, which were basically drug profits, into banks in tax haven jurisdictions. As you know, Billy Herbert had law offices in both St. Kitts and Anguilla. So I was a regular visitor, in some cases a weekly visitor, to his law office, and his use of what we call bearer share companies, corporations, the owners of whom are concealed, assisted me in forming corporations, in opening up bank accounts, and in, frankly, moving millions of dollars of cash out of the United States into the global financial picture. That was the point at which he asked me, what about some of my clients, whom, of course, he knew were American, Canadian, French, and Colombian narcotics traffickers, including a number of people who were part of what is now known as the Medellin cartel. What happened was I accepted his offer, and of course I explained to him who these people were. Of course, he was doing business with them through me, so he knew what their business was, but he still allowed me to go ahead and make application and to send money into trust or escrow accounts for that purpose. Then there came a time right after that when some of these clients were indicted in the United States for narcotics trafficking. And I went to Billy Herbert and I explained, hey, listen, these people now have arrest records. They haven't been convicted. They don't qualify anymore in your program. He then explained to me, well, that may be the case, but so long as they've never been convicted of a felony, I will still accept them. That's when I tumbled to the fact that the purpose of the CBI program, in his eyes, was, of course, to bring money into the government's treasury in St. Kitts, but it was also to facilitate and assist people who were clients or potential clients who needed to disguise their identities, their nationalities, their names, their place, and dates of birth so that they could continue with criminal enterprise. That's how the whole thing got started from my viewpoint, and my clients were among the original individuals involved in making application.
But there's somewhat of a variance to what you've said, and for the record, Billy Herbert is no longer with us, so how can you convince our viewership that you're talking the truth, though? How can we?
Well, I think that the first thing you need to do is you need to look at Billy Herbert's record. You know that the United States very roundly and soundly canceled his American ambassadorship when he was suspected in the United States of being involved in handling matters for criminal enterprises. I would ask you to go ask around in Basse-Terre among those people of our age group and find out for yourself exactly what was he involved with back then and what did he do. While people may want to say, well, wait a minute, I'm not going to believe Ken Rijock. Well, I can tell you that I spent the last 35 years of my life making up for the things that I did and helping law enforcement. I've testified 3 times before the United States Congress on matters which ended up in the USA Patriot Act in 2001. I have lectured before our law enforcement agencies, our intelligence services, and those of Canada and Europe. So I'm not exactly somebody just coming in off the street and saying, well, Billy Herbert was a money launderer.
Okay, but let's not go too fast here, Ken Rijock, and let's not get too fast here, because the variance is derived from the fact that when we look at the records, for example, the CBI program, when it was introduced in St. Kitts and Nevis, the introductory option, if I can call it that, was the possibility of purchasing of government bonds, which made a person, beg your pardon, eligible to apply for citizenship. Isn't that correct?
That is correct. It was not a one-stop shop. In other words, you had to go through phase 1 before you could get to phase 2 and phase 3.
So what was phase 1? What was phase 1?
Phase 1 was, of course, you being in there and qualifying and purchasing something that would be of interest to the government and of benefit to not just the government of St. Kitts, but the people. Remember that over the years, the program has evolved. Started out, frankly, in a very primitive manner, and I guess it was really a work in progress. And it's really only been, I'd say, in about the past 15 years that it has taken off. A lot of people will come to you and say, well, hey, in the beginning, they only had a few people here and a few people there. Well, that may be the case, but I invite everybody watching this program to go on my blog and read all the articles of all the individuals who bought St. Kitts passports, who were all foreign nationals, and who all ended up as arrested and convicted career criminals, sanctions evaders, people involved in terrorist financing, and people involved in all sorts of nasty career white-collar crime. There's a long and sordid history from 1983 to 2025 of all of these dodgy individuals who all seem to qualify for the St. Kitts passport, which leads one to ask, was there ever really any due diligence, or was this whole thing just a sham made up for the purposes of raising capital? And although in the beginning it didn't take off,
okay,
as you can see, going back the last 20 years, it's really become lucrative.
Okay. But getting back to the option of the purchase of government bonds, we then move into the real estate option, which was then introduced and that required a minimum investment of US $250,000 in real estate. That would make a person eligible as well to apply for citizenship, right? But I know you elaborated on the genesis you provided from your perspective amidst those. Am I not correct?
Yes. Well, remember that, as I explained, it was a work in progress, and the real estate option, when that came into being, became really the go-to option for anybody. Why? Because if for some reason the amount of due diligence on the source of funds and the source of wealth of the applicant was not particularly well planned or well executed, that would allow somebody of dodgy means to come in and get a passport. And I want to remind you that one of the worst moments in the St. Kitts CBI program was when it was revealed that people getting a St. Kitts CBI passport were allowing the authorities and actually asking the authorities to change their place and date of birth. You know, there's a classic St. Kitts CBI passport that was issued to a gentleman in Dominica who was one of the prime ministers, and it shows him as a Kittitian citizen and born in St. Kitts. So it was pretty much an open season on if you had enough money to pay for something, you might be able to change your entire profile.
Well, you are correct in that respect in terms of the place of birth field. I think that's what you're referring to, and that caused our passport in our country to be cited by FinCEN, I think was one of the organizations. But Mr. Rijock, you were going there earlier towards your testimonies or having testified 3 or more times before the U.S. congressional committees. And on Straight Talk, we do our research, yes, and you can see from your screens that it was at the 106th Congress that I have posted on your screens now. I trust you have seen it yourself. You testified, quote, that senior bank officers themselves are really indicted for money laundering. You went on, and I quote, the institution simply pays a multi-million-dollar fine. And again, I quote you, we still don't indict their presidents and directors for violation of the Money Laundering Act. Make no mistake, you continued. Money laundering is financial terrorism. Are you familiar with the allegations, or is that correct? Do you agree? Do you recall
Yes, sir.
Those testimonies? You want to
even more
elaborate on it?
so. 20 years later, it's even more correct.
Mm-hmm. So, are you familiar with the allegations of Philippe Martinez? And I'm going to share his comments with you. Are you familiar with Philippe Martinez?
Yes, sir, and I have read the court filings in this case.
You have read all of them. Have you seen
all the ones in the United States case? Yes.
Okay, and you've heard this, I'm sure.
Early in January, a miracle happened, and my American lawyer, pursuant to the court order that we won in Florida, received all the bank transaction of all these people from Bank of America. I repeat, MSR Media is now in possession of all bank transaction for Caribbean Galaxy, Ying Jing, Denzel Douglas, Timothy Harris, CS Global Partner, Farron Lawrence and his company, Sylvester Anthony.
I cited that video based on your testimony at the United States Congress. And as a point of departure, if this statement is accurate, one, are these amounts of money flowing through the U.S. banking system? If, as I said, the statement of Philippe Martinez is accurate, if these amounts of money flowing through the U.S. banking system captured, or are these amounts captured by the Money Laundering Act? That's one. And two, does this give the U.S. extraterritorial jurisdiction? What's your view on that?
Those are good questions. First of all, the Money Laundering Control Act of 1986 is relevant to all U.S. dollar transactions. when the CBI program was initiated in 1983, they specified rather than pound sterling or the EC dollar, that the US dollar would be the currency of the realm, probably because of a huge amount of trade between the US and the East Caribbean states. The fact is that the use of the US dollar coming in from anywhere in the world to be used as an application for a CBI passport means that that money would have all transited American banking systems and then would have ended up in the bank accounts of the East Caribbean states, giving them jurisdiction under the Money Laundering Control Act. The case law in the United States since 1986 has held that there is what we call extraterritorial jurisdiction, meaning that a person could be living in Singapore, never having come to the United States, may have deposited the proceeds of crime in the banking system. It was processed through New York, ended up in St. Kitts, and he is thereby now basically looking at being charged with a money laundering felony with a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison and or a hefty fine. So the short answer to your question, Ian, is number one, the Money Laundering Control Act applies because it's US dollars. And number two, no matter where you are in the world, no matter how remote you are from the United States and how you may never be a visitor, you are still found liable by our court decisions.
So in terms of extraterritorial jurisdiction, though, what authority the U.S. Would have or can use to exercise such authority?
Well, the fact that you get a money laundering violation in federal court in the United States allows the State Department to ask for your extradition in any country which has an extradition treaty with the U.S. So it's been well documented and affirmed on appeal a number of times. You really have no defense to an extradition for a money laundering charge. If you are the person charged, our government's going to go after you and bring you back, no matter how many years it takes. And sometimes it does take a while.
So based on what you said, Kenneth, to the U.S. Congress, would this, if again Philip Martinez's account or his statement is accurate, would these actions be considered financial terrorism, as you referred to?
Well, think about it. If you don't have the proceeds of crime, if you don't have money laundering, as the judge that sentenced me once said, criminals would not be able to operate. And financial terrorism is the instance where crimes committed using dollars end up hurting everybody in the system. Remember this, when money laundering succeeds, the prices of homes go up, the prices of luxury items go up. People who have infinite amounts of cleaned cash don't have to worry about a budget. They can price you out of an expensive home that you wanted to buy or a luxury car. They could, of course, find a way in which to corrupt somebody in the government. There are an infinite number of possibilities which could result in you getting the short end of justice. And if that's not financial terrorism, I don't know what is.
But to follow up on the point, you said as well at the hearing, the 106th Congress, that presidents and directors of banks are not, they're not touched. I'm just paraphrasing here, but the banks are just fined. So in the context of what Martinez again has said, in the context of prime ministers or other political leaders, do you believe that should be indicted, as you suggested that bank presidents or directors should be indicted?
Well, for serious financial crimes, the answer is yes. Remember, while most people don't remember, the United States is not shy about indicting and charging and imprisoning the leaders of government. It happened to the Prime Minister of Turks and Caicos, of course, and you all have to remember General Noriega, who served more than 20 years in an American prison. So, yes, should bank presidents who were involved in massive money laundering operations be indicted and imprisoned? Absolutely, yes. Should prime ministers and senior government officials, wherever they may be charged in the United States? Absolutely. Why should anybody get a pass just because they perhaps were elected by a population that didn't understand how corrupt they are?
So again, Martinez also spoke about this.
We are now in possession of everything. So the condos in Dubai that certain ministers have purchased, we have the bank transaction. Everything.
So then the question being asked is, if this is accurate, should this prime minister or these prime ministers be indicted?
That's just the beginning. Not only should they be indicted and eventually extradited to the United States, and of course the government has the burden of proof at trial, and after they are imprisoned, they should forfeit all of their illicit wealth, which means that the United States should then take it upon itself to go into these foreign countries and seize assets for forfeiture purposes. Now, if the government of St. Kitts actually had some intestinal fortitude, they would do what they have been asked to do for now a year, and that is to go abroad, chase down all of the missing CBI money, which now is, I think, $2 billion is a conservative estimate, and that's U.S. money. Will they go to Hong Kong? Will they try to recover those monies? Will they perhaps delegate that to professionals to recover money which belongs in the treasury of St. Kitts? So the answer is absolutely yes. And when a government official doesn't do his job, he needs to be replaced. That's why you have voters.
I hear this all the time, and you're a lawyer by training, but you must be familiar with our legislation, though, that the only amounts due to the government are the fees. So when I hear this chasing down monies and billions of dollars outside there, I can't find justification for that proposition.
Well,
Can you?
First of all, look at the fact that some of these, let's just say thousands of these, and some authorities say 10,000s of these passport sales were for an illegally discounted amount as small as 40% of the legal minimum required by St. Kitts law, which means that the entire transaction happens to be a crime. And all of those payments are all the proceeds of such crime, and they should be forfeited and seized by the St. Kitts government. So just saying, well, wait a minute, we're only supposed to get our fee. Well, guess what? The fact is that, number one, your projects never got finished. Some of them barely got initiated. And number two, somebody sold a number of passports that was several times more than the actual amount needed to raise to do projects. I only have to mention things like the prison project in St. Kitts, which frankly is a black mark on the entire country, where passports were sold many, many times over at discounted rates to individuals whom we do not know, and some of whom have been arrested in the United States and Europe for financial crimes and industrial espionage. So to answer your question, Ian, the fact that they were sold for an illegal amount means the entire process, the entire purchase price tendered is all the proceeds of crime.
Interesting response. Mr. Rijock, as you made mention of the underselling, our Prime Minister, Dr. Drew, went to Parliament and, in fact, legislated underselling. This is what he said.
Madam Speaker, we criminalize in those regulations underselling. For the first time, it became a crime that, of course, carries penalties, Madam Speaker. That is how serious we were about making sure that the CBI would be set as the whole of government on the principles.
I must apologize for that sound bite there. That should be the Prime Minister actually in Parliament speaking about underselling, right? But let me move forward. I'll get back to that sound bite where the Prime Minister did in fact pass that piece of legislation legislating against underselling. But did you see the riff and the latitude contracts? Are you familiar with riff and latitude? Are you?
Yes, sir. Two companies, both of whom have been blacklisted by the
Yes.
CIU in St. Kitts.
And you saw that? Did you see the contracts that you mentioned earlier about the amounts that weren't collected up, the underpaying, if I can use that word? Did you see them?
Yes, sir. Both the present government and the previous government in St. Kitts both engaged in a huge program of underselling, wherein the CIU and the government signed off on all these passports, and they saw those contracts. They are, by definition, violation.
Okay, and so both or all are culpable in terms of the past and the present. That's what you're suggesting.
That's right. It really goes back, you could go back 3 administrations. But the thing is, today, the project is, can you commit reform or can you allow the crimes to continue?
Let me get back to a comment you made earlier in relation to the control or the concern that has always been raised nigh 20 years now. And I believe it dates back to 2006. There was an International Narcotics Control Strategy Report, the INCSR, which I'm sure you're familiar with, which is the annual report by the Department of State to Congress. And Volume 2 of that report stated that the government of St. Kitts and Nevis continues to be vulnerable to money laundering and other financial crimes. It went on, an area of concern to the USA was the inadequately regulated economic citizenship program in St. Kitts Nevis, and it stated quite clearly that St. Kitts and Nevis should curtail its economic citizenship program. So, with your experience, your knowledge of the market, you started with Dominica back in the 70s, and you came right up to 2025. What is needed to really turn this thing around?
Well, the problem is that, basically there's too much money involved here. When all of these funds happen to be inviting and available, and you don't have governments with a strong moral compass, what happens is people get tempted. People become corrupted. And the corruption not only feeds upon itself, it continues and becomes institutionalized. The CBI program has always had problems with its due diligence. Why? Because with a wink and a nod, you can let somebody come in, get his citizenship and his passport, and go off to do God knows what. But meanwhile, money comes in the door for St. Kitts and Nevis. While it may be very easy to just pass this off as a one-shot deal, for years, people who have been known to be international and transnational criminals have come to St. Kitts with their hands out and their cash in their pocketbook to get a passport, even though they never should qualify. So the only way that this program should continue is with true reform, which means real professionals from abroad to do the due diligence, who can't be bribed, who can't be persuaded by a government official, a program where there's going to be strict accountability for every dollar that comes in, and that everything ends up in escrow, in trust, not to be released, not to be modified unofficially, not with a wink and a nod and a bribe and a kickback. The whole program needs to be expunged and start over. Do I really think that we need foreign administration of the program? Absolutely. If you look at the new program in the Pacific, in the island of Nauru, how did they start the program? They brought in a banking professional from New Zealand, whom they had vetted just to run the program. And this program does not involve the purchase of any real estate. All of the money that's going to be spent goes to help the people in that country. That's what you need. You need a new streamlined program free from all the corruption, from all the issues which diverge from the true use of the program and the intention, which is, let's raise the standard of living of the people in St. Kitts. If we can't do that, we shouldn't have a program at all. So reform, reform, and more reform. And take it away from local politicians, take it away from people with jobs which they're overpaid and which are political appointments and which they're not really qualified for. Bring in outside people, run the program efficiently with not a bribe or kickback in sight. There's your solution.
And you think that's possible after all these decades?
Well, it may not, Ian, it may not even be necessary, or it may not happen. Why? Because the St. Kitts, and to a different extent, the program in St. Lucia, the one in Antigua, the one in Dominica, the one in Grenada, they've all been infected with corruption. In Europe, right now as we speak, the European Commission is moving towards blocking CBI passport holders from visa-free entry. You know, down in Dominica, they've already yanked the UK visa-free for CBI passport holders because the corruption is out of control. So if you can no longer get an EU and a UK free ride into the admission when you fly there, that's 50% of the attraction of the St. Kitts passport. Don't let anybody tell you that it's all about investment and migration. The reason people buy these passports is they come from countries where you need a visa to travel anywhere, and the St. Kitts passport is very helpful for that. Not necessarily to resettle, but just to be able to travel. So without any issues in Europe, the passports may just die a natural death. And let's add one more item. You know that the new United States administration has seen these issues with the passports, and what they're saying is, give me a good reason why St. Kitts and the other 4 countries shouldn't have their visa privileges, period, shattered. And that's really scary, because if your son lives in Montreal, that's one thing. But if he lives in New York and you can't go to visit him, then you have a real problem. And if you can't go to London because you want to fly by way of Miami and you can't get in, guess what? You have a problem. What if you're in business and you import goods from the United States and all of a sudden nobody will deal with you because you can't go there and negotiate transactions? What happens if for some reason you are really sick and you need a special hospital in Boston, but you can't go there? These are all things that people in St. Kitts need to think about, because if they're going to continue to foster this corrupt system and not vote these people out of office, then guess what? Things are going to go from bad to worse very quickly, because it seems to have picking up momentum with the current American administration. So you got the Europeans on one side threatening St. Kitts. You've got the United States on the other. What are you going to do? The only thing left is reform, or cancel the program, and canceling the program is not in the cards.
But you mentioned the past administrations and the current administration. And I had a lecturer would always tell us to get up to date. And you also made mention about the blacklisting of RIF and the other company agent, Latitude, beg your pardon, yes. And the applications or the contracts were filed in court as part of an affidavit under the judicial review claim. But for some reason, the Attorney General tried to strike it out, the claim. But they're not released to the public. And that's an issue we have here in St. Kitts and Nevis, where we are unaware of the number of passports, the number of the information as relates to this case. Would you consider that a cover-up by the current administration, the Prime Minister and the Attorney General?
I would say that neither the present administration nor the prior one were transparent about anything involving the CBI program. The current administration, frankly, appears to be even worse than its predecessor. This thing about hiding the truth from the people of St. Kitts is something that I just cannot fathom, because if there's such a level of concealment, how can these people be reelected to office? How can you deal with this type of misinformation and disinformation when you have your Prime Minister and your Attorney General flat out telling you that, no, we're not going to release that for some reason which, of course, is not legal and defies any normal expectation. What they're trying to do is they're just trying to hide the truth from the voters. And it's disgusting.
Yes, I can imagine. I've got an email that comes in, and we'll go to the lines momentarily in a few minutes. But I just got this email, which I thought I would get a response from you right now, Kenneth. It says, "Hello, Patches. Good night to you and Mr. Rijock. You will recall that when Team Unity took office in 2015, it passed legislation to force the CBI revenues, which had been directed by the Denzel Douglas administration to the SIDF, which was a private foundation, according to Douglas. But the Team Unity administration directed these revenues to the Consolidated Fund and the oversight of Parliament. I wondered," continues this email, "if Mr. Rijock is aware of this fact, and whether he can say if in Dominica the CBI revenues of that country is also deposited into the Consolidated Fund or the government coffers, or whether it is being paid into a private arrangement or entity. Are you aware of that?"
Yes, sir. The problem with all 5 of the CBI states is that it's a patchwork quilt of methods through which funds happen to be placed in escrow or deposit. In some situations, the money goes to a government trust account or a charitable account. In others, the money initially goes somewhere, Singapore, Hong Kong, someplace outside of the control of the governmental treasury. So the problem is that there's no uniformity. The writer is correct. And bottom line, in Dominica, there are real questions raised daily about funds actually being used for the purposes which they were intended. Remember that, as I said before, when it comes to this amount of money, it's utterly corrupting. And when you deal with not just government officials, but these passport sales consultancies and contractors, it's very easy for money to disappear. It's very easy for it to be moved around. And when the average person is busy at work and has no time to go look at government records and bank statements, things get lost and things disappear. So this is a industry-wide problem in the East Caribbean, and the depth of the depravity is more than we can possibly think about.
Now, I'll just advance one more question before I open the lines, because the lines are ringing, and I have two callers on hold at the moment. But did I understand you that, or perhaps I should ask the question so I can get more clarity? That is, what risks St. Kitts and Nevis, and by extension the other OECS countries, CBI countries, what risks they will face, or here in St. Kitts, what risks our country will face if the Prime Minister and his Attorney General do not properly address the current situation?
Well, I can't speak for the government of the United States. For those people who weren't following the MSR media case, when the senior government officials in two countries asserted immunity because they were acting and serving government officials, Mr. Martinez dismissed the case without prejudice to file it again, but those were civil cases, and he then turned over all his evidence and filed what we call a criminal referral in the United States in Washington as to what's going to ultimately happen to the Prime Minister, cabinet officers, and the Attorney General in St. Kitts. Nobody can say, because a pending criminal investigation is classified. But could we expect down the road to see something very disturbing in the news one day? Very possibly. And remember, as I said before, when push comes to shove, the United States is not afraid to charge a foreign government official, even a sitting one.
Okay, and my Straight Talk family, we will go to the lines any moment now. And for those who may have just joined me, we have as our guest for the entire program tonight, Kenneth Rijock, who is the author of The Laundryman, which contains a true crime memoir. Mr. Rijock told us already that he lived a lavish lifestyle by day, he laundered millions in drug money by night, and eventually turned as an informant for the U.S. government, having served time in prison. He explained what caused his transformation. But I'll open the lines now, my Straight Talk family, and we will entertain your calls, we'll entertain your emails as well. I always like to implore you, though, that we must respect others. And of course, to achieve that, we must first respect ourselves. Let us try to be fair to all concerned. Let us try to build goodwill and better friendships. And in the things we say and or do, let us as well try to ensure that they are beneficial to all concerned. And in the process of saying and doing those things, let us strive to build a kinder, gentler St. Kitts and Nevis. With that said, I go to the lines and say good night to our first caller. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Good night, Mr. Liburd.
Good night, my dear.
The quotation, a lie has speed, but truth has endurance.
A lie has speed and truth has endurance.
To believe in something and not live to it is dishonest.
To believe in something and not live to it.
To believe in something and not to live it.
To live it.
Is dishonest.
Dishonest.
I repeat, a lie has speed, but truth has endurance. To believe in something and not to live it is dishonest. Have a great evening.
Have a great evening as well. That's our usual caller. Provides some thought-provoking quotations. We go straight back to the lines and thank this caller for holding. Caller, you're live.
Good night, Brother Patches.
Good night, my brother.
Good night to the special guest, Mr. Rijock.
Thank you.
First of all, I must say my name is Winston Welcome, a crusader for justice, truth, and righteousness for the people of the Federation of St. Kitts. Time was due, and time is due, for the truth to reveal itself. All the dark clouds that was hanging over the Federation and beyond. Let the ears who can hear, let them hear. Now, from the beginning, when we heard of the whistleblower scandal, which now to be truth, which is demon proper, I hope all the ears are hearing, and I hope there will be no more doubts of Philip Martinez. He was deemed to be a person of, I'm not going to say it because he paid his dues for his crime that he paid for. And the light that he brought to St. Kitts and Nevis and the rest of the CBI countries, here is it. Well, I pray to God that wherever our patrimony is, the United States Department, and wherever the trails are, the track are, we will find it, and we will change this government, because this government should have known and what they swore to, the due diligence of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I know Mr. Martinez was right, was true, but the facts remain to be confirmed and authentic. Mr. Rijock, thank you for explaining. Thank you for making us knowledgeable of the consequences. These kleptocrats, misfits, and recycled politicians, and the saga that continues from then until now. Let the chips fall with me. Go US. I'm with you. And let us get rid of all these people once and for all. The cloud is clear. Thank you. I will yield to others and let everyone has their say. Thank you again, Mr. Rijock. You are welcome. Hope to see you in St. Kitts. Bye for now.
Thank you very much for your intervention, caller. We go back to the line and thank this caller for holding. Caller, you are live. Hello, caller. Are you there, caller?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you loud and clear, sir.
Patches.
So,
I think from my voice, you know who I am.
yes, I know that voice very well.
Yes, it's Anthony Ross, the same guy that Rijock flashed some of his garbage in 2018 about me doing a contract with the former government for $3 million with a 50% kickback, then escalating it to $5 million with a 50% kickback, and then later withdrawing it and apologizing and leaving it hanging, saying that his source cannot provide the information at that time. Government has changed, but I haven't seen his source do anything. But apart from that, I cannot understand why you, somebody who is focused on what's happening here in the Caribbean, if you need assistance from an American lawyer, get somebody with a license to practice, to go out there and to bring this guy from his own statement, a joint enterprise with Dr. Herbert, and for you to make the statement that Dr. Herbert is no longer with us. Maybe you know something that a lot of people don't know. But that was just words. And I am really embarrassed that you went down that road. And to get somebody, a co-conspirator, somebody who was in a joint enterprise as he came with Dr. Herbert. Dr. Herbert is not here to defend his name. And then to go through all that he has gone through. And then he is going to have the temerity to be advising us and advising our government. We don't need that kind of advice. Okay? And I'm going to tell you, one of the things that I learned, before I started being this lawyer business, I did engineering. One of the things I learned, you're going out in the field and you're using a tape, you first standardize your tape. Because if your tape is not true, your measurements cannot be correct. And to go ahead and to get this guy, he tells us that he served 2 years. 2 years of what sentence? Was that a full sentence? Or did he rat people out for the rest of the time? And then anything happens when he goes back on the inside, he will see what they do with people like him. And I'm going to say to you, I find it just very, very disturbing. I got a lot of notes. And he classified the program down here as primitive. If he goes back, he recognizes that there are being programs similar to these across Canada. He speaks about the lack of due diligence. Sure, there are problems with the program. But I think that is a terrible embarrassment for the people of St. Kitts to be being lectured by the likes of Rijock.
Thank you.
I can tell you personally, I always had the idea that I prefer to die at the hands of a competent surgeon than to be cured by a quack. And that is what Rijock is.
Thank you very much. And that's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What I will suggest to you is that if you ever bring on somebody like him again, bring on somebody else.
Okay.
Also that it can be a bigger debate.
And
lots of people are waiting. Lots of people are waiting.
Here's your invitation.
My invitation?
Let me just say this, Ian.
Wait a while, please. Wait a while. Are you finished, Professor?
Who's your professor?
You are my professor.
Mr. Ross is different.
Yes, Ross, yes.
Well, no.
Finally.
That is when we're having fun, that's one thing.
Yeah.
This is a serious matter.
Yes, okay. Anything else?
I am finished, yes.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Well, there's a lot to say. There's a lot to say. But I just wanted to come down to the point that we do not need advice from people like Rijock.
Okay, thanks a lot for your contribution. That's what Straight Talk is all about. Mr. Rijock, on Straight Talk, you have an opportunity to respond.
Well, in my experience, whenever you expose corruption, it's always shoot the messenger. Somebody like myself with that kind of a background is probably the only person to give you the true story. It's only somebody that's been there who actually might be in a position to tell you what you're doing wrong and how to fix it. I don't hide my background from anybody. And if anybody looks at my record for the past 30 years, rather than just, waste around my time, I have been working. What am I doing? I'm trying to catch money launderers. I'm trying to stop corruption. So you might, Mr. Ross, want to say that I'm not the right person to criticize your program, but your program gets an F in the way in which CBI is run in this world. If you go to a place like Europe where you can see they actually do due diligence, where they actually vet people and they check source of funds and source of income, and they don't take people who actually have been arrested somewhere else and then flee to the Caribbean to get a passport, which is how it works. Therefore, don't shoot the messenger, Mr. Ross. Look at your own house and get that in order. And if you can't do that, then you need to shut it down.
Okay, we go back to the lines by Straight Talk family. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Yes, good evening, Patches, man. Good evening, Mr. Liburd. Good evening to you and the guest. The guest is still on, right?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Yes, right off the bat, I want to welcome and say thanks to the gentleman, the guest, for coming on tonight and speaking. Like you said, he is speaking to the world. Whether the world is the wide world or whether the world is the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. I want to ask him a question or some questions. If he was the one in control in terms of
indictments or charging, or if he was the judge, when they go to the grand jury, if he was in control, what would he do? Who would he charge? How far back would he go? I'm going to call out the Prime Minister straight out tonight. And I'm going to say to the Prime Minister, he needs to do some things so he and his cabinet can come out from underneath this black cloud. We talk about scandals in the previous administrations, and here we are. All the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, I hope they're listening tonight. And if they're not listening tonight, I ask them, please, to go back and review this tape tonight. Patches, I want to thank you for bringing on this gentleman. No spinning tonight. No one is exempt. Everybody who has been caught up in this scandal, I am saying they are at risk of being indicted. We cannot, 2 words I want to throw out tonight: transparency and accountability. We have this status quo that continues on, and our system in our little small island state of St. Kitts and Nevis has to be broken. And let me ask the gentleman, how does he feel if his son goes into the supermarket and pick up a can of sardine and he get charged when we are seeing these white collar crimes happening and no one is being held accountable?
Okay.
I want to ask you, let me ask him my next question, Patrick, before we get off. Let me ask him my next question.
Go ahead, please. Good.
Yeah, let me ask you, I don't know if all of it going to be questions, but it might be questions and comments.
Ask a question. I have some delays.
Let me ask him. Please, let me ask him. If he was to identify any country or countries based on what his knowledge is about the amount of money that were collected or possibly would have come into the Federation, what country or countries could he identify to say the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis should be looking like? My comment in terms of that is St. Kitts and Nevis should be in tip-top shape. We're not seeing where this money went at all.
Okay, I'll have him answer the question, caller. I think.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I'll have him answer the question. Go ahead, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Rijock. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Well, to answer the caller's question, if I was the Attorney General in the United States, sitting in Washington, D.C., and I had, for the sake of argument, free reign, I would bring down an indictment against the last 3 sitting prime ministers in your country. I would point to all 3 of them as being culpable for money laundering crimes involving the Citizenship by Investment program. Of course, I would also seek to indict the sitting Attorney General and the head of the CIU program. Why? Because between the 5 of them, they've done immense damage to St. Kitts. Remember, his second question, where's all the money? Well, most of it ended up going to a number of Chinese banks in Hong Kong. Some apparently went into mainland China as well. So if there really was a mission to recover those funds, they would have to be undertaken by professionals with international experience and status to chase the money down in China. And remember also that many of the illegal CBI vendors, the consultancies, have all set up in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, which is probably where a lot of the money also resides. So if you got a place to go, first place, of course, is China, and we're talking about billions of dollars, and also the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. And I thank the gentleman for his call.
Thank you. We go back to the lines. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Hello?
Yes, you're live, sir.
Yes, good night, Mr. Liburd.
Good night, sir.
I usually would listen, right, and don't call in. But tonight I think I had to call with this gentleman that you have on the program.
You have your equipment on.
Let me try and turn it down a bit. Maybe yeah.
Yes,
like I say, I usually would listen and watch your program and don't really call it.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I had to call in tonight when we have a gentleman like this man here who would have, I think he would have said that, and I think I heard you say, I didn't hear him himself, but I think I would have heard you say that he would have had some running with the law. If I'm wrong, right.
Yeah.
Why is it that we need people like he and Philip Martinez to come and correct us or come and tell us how we should be living? Mm-hmm. If he's found in the United States, he has a president who has been convicted of 34 charges. We just put into office.
Yeah, what's the other question? What's the other question, caller?
Yeah, but I'm talking. I
have a lot of lines here.
I'm not going to be long. I'm not going to be long.
What is your other question? What is your other question? You have
okay. Then what the other question is? Yes. Let he go and try and convict Donald Trump first before he come here and try to convict our prime ministers, our former and present prime minister.
Okay, good. Thanks a lot, man. Now, any response, Kenneth Rijock?
Well, sir, tonight we're talking about the problems of the St. Kitts and Nevis CBI program. We could certainly talk about the problems of the United States in another hour. But the point is that the purpose of the program tonight is to advise your listeners as to what the problems are, as they don't already know what they are, and how to possibly solve them before we find all sorts of criminal issues coming to rest, which could set back St. Kitts for decades.
Okay, we go back to the lines. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Patches and Mr. Rijock.
Good evening.
I just have a quick question. He mentioned earlier, or he expressed a concern about petitions and our visa to the U.S. Is that he's saying that would affect even those who are actually born in St. Kitts and can present their birth certificate, or it doesn't matter?
Okay, I'll have him respond. Thanks. Any other
Thank
question?
you. No, thank you.
Thanks a lot for your question. Any response, Mr. Rijock?
Yes, that's a very good question, ma'am, and well taken. The problem is that the way that the process appears to be structured, it hasn't been initiated yet, is that everybody in St. Kitts and Nevis, not just the CBI passport holders, every person with the Kittitian passport is at risk of having their privileged visa denied. So, let me explain that you can see in the United States the frustration with years of abuse of St. Kitts, Nevis, St. Lucia, Dominica, and to a lesser extent, Grenada. And we haven't even talked about Antigua. Years of abuse of the CBI program is now coming to hit people who have nothing to do with it, but who have bought into it for years and years of allowing officials in parties to come to power who have been using and abusing the process. If the people in St. Kitts want to wake up now and understand that it could actually come home to roost to you, then maybe we might see some true reform in the program, or to have the program somehow restructured or assigned to somebody who is free from corruption to actually operate it. But unfortunately, ma'am, the way that the prospective visa denial is working is that 4 of the 5 East Caribbean states that have CBI are now on track to having their nationals lose all the ability to get a visa except under very rare circumstances. So you're about to pay for the corruption of your leaders.
Okay, let's just go back to the lines. Thank this caller for holding. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Yes, Patches. Yes, Patches is me again. Mr. Rijock, thank you again. My question is, let's be factual that all these money were to be discovered as it's said to be. Billions. You said the professionals will have to do this trail. Now, if that money were to be discovered, or the patrimony, I should say, would that be in an escrow account and be put aside for a use to the people, but not in the government hands? Because we don't want this mistake to happen again. And we have to be careful where we move from now and how we move forward. And how could we, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, get out of this? Okay? I know you said we got to make changes to these kleptocrats, misfits, because that's who they are. And I have no empathy in saying that. Now, before I go off, I will yield to others. The previous caller that called just now. First of all, sir, it takes a criminal to catch a criminal. Okay? And we have criminals. And if until Philip Martinez, and however you may describe Mr. Rijock, thank God to them. Look, we caught, but you're not pleased because you're probably one who want to continue. I leave that to Mr. Rijock.
Yeah, I think I got you, my brother. Let's any response, Mr. Rijock?
Well, I agree with the caller that yes, you need to recover that money, and more importantly, when it is recovered, it needs to go into for safekeeping accounts so that the same corrupt officials that were stealing you blind before aren't doing it again, or their allies or political supporters. So I agree. The first order of business here, besides trying to reform the program, is to go, find out where is this money and take legal procedures to recover it if possible, and then to safeguard it. So the gentleman is spot on with his statement. It's unfortunate, but somebody is going to have to wake up and do something, and I fear it's not going to be the St. Kitts government. But I might be wrong. Maybe the next government might be in a position to help.
Okay. Caller, are you there? Hello, caller?
Yes, hello, good night.
Yes, sir, you're live.
It's Straight Talk?
Yes, it is.
Hello?
Yes, you're live. The whole world is listening to you.
Yes.
We have just to inform you though, we have an overseas line. Are you aware of that? But you're here. But go ahead.
Yeah, but I wasn't getting it. Let me just be quick here. Okay.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You go ahead.
My thing is, the gentleman on your program seemed to have indicated that in his presentation that he was used in his presentation that he made with the late Billy Herbert. He claimed that he gave advice to Billy Herbert. Number one. So, is it a case now that of sour grapes that he now found out that the program has gone beyond what he expected? Number one, because what caused him all of a sudden now to have this interest in the Caribbean when, according to him, 30, 40 years ago, he knew this corruption was going on? And by the way, what about the programs in Europe, in the Scandinavian countries like Switzerland and others? What about those British territories where similar stuff is going on? Shady deals. How come he's not saying anything at this point in time? And he's making all kind of claims about a man who is dead. Why didn't he say so before?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rijock?
No, that's a very good. That's a good point.
It's a fair question.
If you go on the internet, you'll see that I have not been shy about my relationship in the money laundering world and my relationship with Billy Herbert. And you'll find articles, interviews of myself from as far back as the 1990s where I named and shamed everybody I dealt with. This is not something new. and I'm not just coming to this. I've been writing about financial crime in the Caribbean and in the CBI program for decades. All you need to do is go on my blog and you'll see the articles going back decades. Let me understand that you think that I'm just coming in here because of sour grapes. I have no monetary interest in the CBI program. I would just like to see it work, because the whole idea was to put money in the pocket of the national treasury so that they could build up infrastructure, so they could create jobs. But it's just ended up being a piggy bank for a number of corrupt individuals and their supporters. So please don't accuse me of being a Johnny-come-lately, because I was here long before you were, sir, and all you have to do is go look on the internet and type in my name, that's Rijock, and you will find hundreds of articles. You'll find articles that I've written in the thousands, and you'll hear me talk about it on YouTube and elsewhere. I've been honking the horn loudly for the last decade when the corruption started to go out of control. Remember, in the early years of the CBI program, it barely moved forward. But those people that it actually gave passports to, they were involved in financial crime, narcotics trafficking, and of course, money laundering. So it only picked up in the last decade. But who's doing this? The last three administrations in St. Kitts, and they're all culpable and they're all to blame. Thank you.
Mr. Rijock, from some of the callers, it may be fair to conclude that for some callers, your criminal past precedes you. Now, you haven't shied away from that criminal past. You're upfront, even in your book. But you have been invited to Congress, United States Congress, on 3 or 4 occasions. Why would Congress invite you, and what was the outcome from your testimonies at the Congress sessions?
Well, what you need to understand is that only somebody that's been on both sides of the problem can really understand it and can possibly craft a solution. The reason that I went to Congress to testify 3 times was in support of really strong anti-money laundering legislation. That was in the 1990s, which means that's, 30 years ago?
Okay.
All of those provisions ended up in the USA Patriot Act after 9/11. Why? Because the United States was not serious about money laundering until, unfortunately, the towers fell, and we realized that money laundering is not just about somebody moving drug profits, it's also about terrorist financing. So the bottom line is that I have a certain skill set. You might understand that it is of a criminal nature, at which I spent 10 years of my life moving dirty money. But I have also spent the last 30 years trying to stop the movement of dirty money. And if that means fraud, money laundering, corruption, and other types of white-collar crime, I go after those as well. It's unfortunate that some of the listeners are more concerned with shooting the messenger than they are with understanding the problem. And the problem they have is that St. Kitts is at a crossroads. It's either going to reform the program and charge the people responsible and go after that money, or just drift off into what some of these other countries have run into, and that is the total loss of your program. Why don't you take a look over at Cyprus or Bulgaria, 2 EU countries, both of which had a CBI program and both of which had to shut them down in disgrace. Well, so do you want your program to be shut down in disgrace, or do you want to move forward with it, and do you want to use it for the purposes for which it was originally intended?
Okay, we go back to the lines and thank this caller for holding. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Yeah, pleasant good night, Brother Patches.
A pleasant night, sir.
And good night to the listening audience, both in the Federation and those abroad. Now, it's very interesting. Now, it is amazing. That's why I tell you, all of us is thief, and it's time for us to stop thief. Now, see what happening here now. Who launder more money than London? But what happens is that we don't know who think we are smart, right? Because the political elite, right, or the petty bourgeois elite, who think that they're smart and they could outsmart imperialism, is that they are junior partners in money laundering and crime, all kind of crime activity. So when the hammer drop now, it can drop on our head. No, I'm not saying that there's no corruption in the CBI, but the main objective, right, of the imperialist forces is to mash up the CBI program, to mash up the offshore industry in Nevis. They don't want to see we making money, right? I'm not saying that it's correct to be involved in corruption, but all of us is corrupt. But because we are the junior partners in the corruption, when the hammer drop, it drop on our heads. Okay. But not only that, Brother Patches, and I'm sure Mr. Rijock know this, is that people have struggled for black liberation, have also been criminalized. When you even talk about the RICA Act, people are political, people like Malcolm X, people like Dr. King, they come up from a financial standpoint to say they was involved in corruption too. So we got to be, that's why I say we got to understand what is taking place. What happens is that white supremacy is at a level where it is in crisis. So what happened now? You see, like how Trump put tariffs on China. But China could deal with them. Because China could compete with them on that level. The only way we could compete with them is that we have to unite as a people and get rid of the corruption. Where the United States don't give us the information and then we deal with them. No, because they are junior partners. And what's going to happen is that all of us going to feel the pain. And that is the problem with the Patches. So I want our people to understand, we have to stop thieves. That's all I have to say. That's what Granny said. Give thanks.
Thanks a lot, my dear brother. Any reaction, Mr. Rijock? Any reaction?
Well, obviously there's corruption in the world. The gentleman probably wants to get in his car and drive around St. Kitts and look at all the unfinished construction projects, which are prima facie evidence of fraud, corruption, and money laundering. Yes, there's a lot of corruption in the world. How about you try to shut down the corruption at home, in your backyard, and in your own home? How about we think about trying to clean up the CBI program before it ends up being taken away from us? Listen, would you like to be in a situation where you can't fly somewhere because everybody with the St. Kitts passport is being treated as a criminal? That could be your future. Would you really like to be unable to receive money from your son in San Francisco because the U.S. has blocked all payments? You know, the future could be very dark and very dim here. The solution is clean up your house now before somebody else does something to it.
Okay, we go back to the lines and thank this caller for holding. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller?
Yes, Patches, let me get back in real quick, man. Our parents did not raise us like this. You know, there is some intangible, morals that we were taught growing up. And these leaders that we have, they don't have no integrity. They put their hand on the Bible and they take an oath, and it seems like they all have broken their oaths. And saying that, it appears to me that none of them have any more loyalty to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and they pledge allegiance. But guess what? They don't seem to have no more loyalty and allegiance to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis than anyone else, especially all the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis in the diaspora. All citizens need to enjoy all the fruits of their citizenship. Early in the AG's term, I asked him a question on Freedom FM. If he get caught up in a scandal, will he resign? He said yes. He won't wait to get fired by the Prime Minister. And when that soundbite you played with the Prime Minister in Parliament, saying that they are the ones that now has made underselling a crime, guess what? From a little boy, he should know, if you thief, you commit a crime. He don't have to go into Parliament and pass any law and say thieving is a crime. That's my contribution tonight, man. Thanks a lot. Have a good night.
Thanks a lot as well. Let's take any response? Any response, Mr. Rijock?
No, sir. It speaks for itself.
Yes. Okay. Let's take this email. Patches, our CBI program, which has been placed in a comatose state, now has the European Union Parliament Committee advance a vote on or about the 3rd of April 2025 with 41 votes in favor, 10 against, with 21 abstentions to amend the EU visa regulations mainly to target the OECS countries, CBI, under the guise that our CBI is a potential threat to EU security. The final vote to cut off our life support will soon be heard at the full EU Parliament, shortly, and is expected to pass. This move by the EU was a strategic and deliberate one to destroy our CBI, to give life to their fellow member Bulgaria and others who have their golden visa schemes, which have been clearly outshined by the Caribbean CBI. With all the meetings the EU had with the respective OECS governments and the proposals the EU asked them to do, which now clearly show that all the recommendations asked by the EU were not made up to withdraw the visa-free access. Already made up to draw the visa-free access. The EU actions is identical to King David of the Bible, who took away his best friend Uriah's wife, Bathsheba, then proceeded to kill Uriah to benefit himself. The EU, our former slave owners, now see us striving and is jealous of our progress. As to them, how dare we progress when we should only be satisfied by continually be hewers of wood and fetchers of water. The EU is executing us, not by hanging or by a firing squad, as they used to do in the public square, but is injecting a lethal dose of poison into our water sources. Our CBI, our OSS leaders cannot allow our former colonizers to give us the hoe and the fork to till the land again, while they take the bag with the cash as they ravish our CBI gold mine, reads that email. Any response?
Good point. The readers and the viewers of the program, they need to understand something. In the European Union, they have a philosophy. If you're going to hold a European Union passport, you need to actually have a connection to the country, linguistic, economic, emotional. You need to go and visit there. You may want to live there sometime. If you don't have really close ties, why would they want you to have the passport? That is their philosophy. And that's the reason why Bulgaria and other countries which were looking to get a passport no longer have them. Listen, the person is wrong. In Europe, they're not giving you a passport. It's only a residency. That could be revoked. The real value of the Caribbean passport, let's be candid, is visa-free access to Europe. And if that's taken away, then frankly, it doesn't have much value. You know that just the other day I wrote an article, the government of Nigeria is thinking about having a CBI program. And I'm asking, because you can't get into the US, the UK, or the EU with a Nigerian passport. Will it ever succeed? I doubt it. if you understand that the European version of CBI is that you really need to have a connection to that country, you understand why they're going to cut the tie and why pretty soon the attraction of an EC passport, which allows you into Europe, is going to evaporate. And what that happens is the value of your passport may decline exponentially. But the caller just doesn't understand. Europe is not all about just having a passport. If you don't speak the language, you don't visit there, you don't own property there, and you have no ties there. They want you to actually be a part of the wherever you hold your passport. I ask you, how many people from overseas that have St. Kitts passports have ever even bothered to visit, let alone live in the real estate that they bought there? Doesn't happen.
This email reads, "Good night, Patches. Do not allow any caller to call your show and disrespect the gentleman. Something has to be wrong. We should be glad that we are being enlightened about the injustice done to us, the citizens, by persons whom we elected to work on our behalf," reads this email. This other email reads, "Patches, I want to thank you for another great show. Bringing information to the people is very much appreciated. Let's not pay attention to those people who want to shoot the messengers. People need to start listening to the message and leave the personalities out of it. The same thing they said about Martinez is the same things they are saying about your guest tonight. Corruption is corruption. It doesn't matter who the messenger is. Country above self. That's what all of us should be thinking." You've been doing this now, Mr. Martinez, Mr. Rijock, I beg your pardon, for over 30 years. Am I correct?
That's correct.
So since the 90s, and perhaps, and you've done, I'm sure you've done many shows like this.
And more importantly, I've also lectured many places.
You have lectured as well. And tell us all whom you advise, apart from going to Congress, the banks, and who else, or what other institutions?
Well, you know that the law enforcement community in North America has very little expertise in money laundering and in advanced financial crime. And since I've been exposed to and participated in a lot of those operations, I'm in a position to explain what the tradecraft is, what are the techniques and the methods. And one of the things that, of course, I talk about is the use of CBI by organized crime. Remember that if you come from a place like Russia or Iran or North Korea or Syria, you really would like to have one of those St. Kitts passports, especially if it has another name on it and another birth date and another place of birth, because you'll be able to travel around the world, open up bank accounts. You'll be able to pass through customs and immigration with ease because they think you're somebody else. So it's all about making sure that whoever takes a St. Kitts passport is a legitimate person. And when you fail in that, then the roof is going to come down on your head. So the corruption, the money laundering, the fraud, it's almost too much for the people of St. Kitts to bear, but they need to be strong and they need to actually start doing something about it. And the way to do so is elect leaders who actually will work for your country and not to feather their own nest. You don't want all your leaders taking bribes and kickbacks and then moving to Dubai when they're out of office to enjoy the fruits of their crimes. Clean up your country by cleaning up your government.
What about the Chinese? No mention was made of the Chinese. And you mentioned Russia, and we are aware that Russia and China, in particular the latter, were big, or the biggest markets in the CBI sector, especially for our OESS CBI regimes. Is that correct?
That's true, and it's worse than that because it's the Chinese-owned and controlled companies that have been all around the Caribbean, starting, of course, in St. Kitts and Nevis, and then moving to St. Lucia. They're also down in Grenada. There isn't anywhere that they're not exerting influence because they are operating the programs, selling passports at an illegal discount, and then they are sneaking all of this money out of the region so it will never end up in the accounts of the people who was it designed to serve. So the Chinese are trying to move into the region. They're trying to exert undue influence. And when you have more passports to Chinese nationals than you have to Kittians, you have a problem.
Okay, let's go back to the lines. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Yes, Brother Patches, it's Kalunji again. You know, what I'm saying, Mr. Rijock, I'd like to ask him a question, right? You ever heard about the Black Panthers?
Make your point.
Okay. What I'm saying to you, the Panther 21 case in New York, right? They were charged with the RICA Act. The RICA Act deals with interstate trafficking. What they do, brothers and sisters who struggle for black liberation, they criminalize them. The New York 8, right? That took place, I think it was in 1984.
Yeah, so what's the question? What's the question for real, Rijock?
The charge, the New York 8 RICA Act, because they criminalize black people struggling for black liberation. So what I'm saying to you, the financial and all this money laundering, right? The United States government passed laws to criminalize black people when they're not involved in these things.
Okay, I got your point.
That's the point I'm making. That's the point I'm making. So what I'm saying to you now, the black petty bourgeois down here who involved in all these corruption and money laundering, like I said before, they are the junior partners. So what happened now? The United States reached to a point where you want to clean up certain things and take more control of our economy. That's why they're coming with these things now.
Okay, I got you, Ras Kalunji.
So I want people to be aware.
Any response?
No, sir. It's kind of off topic.
Okay, let's go back to the lines. Caller, you are live. Hello, caller.
Yes. Thank you again. Mr. Rijock, in all the light that has been shed on this matter that we are facing now, the passport is a threat, and the passport is a threat to the United States if it doesn't execute in the name of good and proper. Now, the United States is vulnerable because we have different criminal nations that are banned from coming into the United States, now getting the access because of criminal money. Would it be fair to say that these people is just want to hurt America and using our bridge to cross and step over to America? And America has to be vigilant for who, how, when, and why
they
are taking this routing.
Okay, I got you. Any quick response? We run out of time.
Yes, sir. Well, the gentleman's right. The United States is now intercepting and arresting, especially Chinese nationals involved in criminal activity and other illegal acts. But the point is that because there is such an obscene number of passports out there in China with zero due diligence, that the United States deems it in its best interest to start interfering with the visas of everybody who happens to hold a St. Kitts passport. So the United States is taking care of that problem, but part of the solution is going to be that you won't be able to get a visa to go visit somebody in Dallas.
Okay.
The issue's there, it's being dealt with, but you're not going to like that version of the solution.
Now, this email reads, Dear Mr. Rijock, do you think the ill-gotten gains from these CBI programs have been used to corrupt elections in the region, such as using it to bring home overseas voters June elections to pop up the said corrupt governments. That's
the name of the game. Dominica is notorious for that. They fly people back every time there's a national election from North America, from Canada, from the US, even from Europe. So they fill up the ballot box, and the same corrupt government keeps getting reelected for more than 20 years. It's happening all over the Caribbean. It's been happening. Election fraud is part of the way in which a corrupt party stays in power against the wishes of the people. So what needs to be done here is that you need to break the cycle of corruption.
Okay.
Whether you need to form a new political party, whether you need to clean up one that's existing in opposition, there needs to be a reason for changing the game, which means you can't have a re-election of the existing regime. You can't go back to the last one either. You're going to have a new place in which people are confident to render their vote.
Okay, let's go back to the lines and thank this caller for holding. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Hey, thank you. Am I to understand that these little dots in the Atlantic Ocean are a threat to the mighty United States? Is that the claim? Or is the United States a threat to these small islands? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. Is that a question you'll answer?
Yeah, good question.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the islands that are the threat. It's the people holding the passports who shouldn't have received them in the first place and who are coming in from places like China to try to steal American technology, to try to commit financial crime, to try to steal secrets. It's the people that are the threat. And how did they get the tool? They got the tool because somebody in St. Kitts gave them the passport when they already had a criminal record, never should have been approved in the first place. It's all about corruption, and that's the solution. If only legitimate people get St. Kitts passports, legitimate business people, retirees, investors, that's fine. But when you get a whole class of criminals who get these passports, there's the devil to pay. And you're going to reap the whirlwind because one day you're going to wake up and find out you can't go to Miami. What will you do then?
If the
Change the government?
If the United States, beg your pardon, if the United States apply any corrective action on the CBI program, if the country does not adhere to this, can it also affect the value of the EC dollar? Is that email?
Well, that's a good question. I don't. Frankly, the EC dollar is not a hard currency in the first place, and that's probably why the founders of the CBI program 40 years ago decided to go with the US dollar. But the currency is not an issue. The issue is it's bigger than that. The currency is a means to an end, but if you're unable to have a program that is trusted, then you'll end up being a pariah, not just to Europe and the United States, but elsewhere. Who wants to be in a position where a family goes on vacation from St. Kitts, and when they arrive at, let's say, Paris to go to Euro Disney, they find out that they're going to be interrogated and their bags examined, and they're going to be held for 12 hours while they check something, because the person at customs has instructions not to pass anybody from St. Kitts without extreme due diligence. So, the problem is it's bigger than money. The problem is your whole sense of national worth is in danger.
I have a few more minutes left, Mr. Rijock. If the next caller can be guided by the rules of brevity, I'll take one more call if they can get in a few seconds. We've been having a discussion, for those who may have joined us belatedly, with Ken Rijock, who is money launderer who has transgressed the law over 30 years ago, and now he is an advisor, a consultant, whatever the names are, and he's been with us for the entire 2 hours of the program, and we discuss our topic, or we had a conversation, beg your pardon, on the genesis and current state of the St. Kitts and Nevis CBI program. And in his view, he was a part of the establishment, a pioneer in the program. But as we wind up or wind down, whichever term is applicable here, Kenneth Rijock, I'll give you the next 4 minutes or 5 minutes to summarize and give us, as we say in colloquial parlance, your parting comments, Mr. Rijock.
Thank you, Ian. All right, to summarize what we've done today, first of all, we go back 42 years to the origins of the CBI program, where we have a program which has been created for the use of the people of a country which needs additional funding for a number of reasons, which does not have a strong economy, and which is looking for an injection of foreign capital as well as funding for their national treasury, and is going to use a passport sales program to accomplish this. Unfortunately, the creator of the program decided that he preferred, if possible, that dodgy characters who might be better heeled financially might be the best candidates for these passports. And over the last 40 years, there have been an awful lot of criminals, people who you really wouldn't want to meet on a dark street, people involved in all sorts of illicit activity who've been given these passports, who've used them for their own criminal ends, who have gotten in trouble, been arrested, convicted, imprisoned, and instead of reforming the program, it's just going on and on ad infinitum to the point where a St. Kitts passport now looked at by a compliance officer at an international bank, wondering, well, what do I have here? Is this really a Kittitian born in Basseterre, or is this somebody that was born in Moscow, doesn't speak English, never been to St. Kitts, has got all sorts of strange things on his passport which don't match his true story. And I'm not going to open a passport. I'm not going to open a bank account for this individual. So the point is this: what started out perhaps under a misguided idea has been continually used for, I had to say this, for ill purposes. Even though we do have many people who buy the passports who happen to be legitimate businessmen who have a real need for a visa-free entry to many parts of the world, there's also a large group of people who you wouldn't want to sit next to on a bus who are unfortunately criminals. And then in the background now, we have the last 10 years in which the very slow to move forward program has now accelerated. Why? Well, we have a couple of Chinese companies that came in, took advantage of a number of corrupt individuals, paid them off very well, and then decided to loot the program out of billions of dollars. So what we have is a program where you can't trust the people operating it, you can't trust the people in charge of government, and you certainly can't trust the people holding the passports. So it's in need of dire reform or termination. And I would rather see reform, because the true purpose of the program is to take care of the population of St. Kitts and Nevis, and it's not doing that. I'm hoping that summarizes what is unfortunately a sad state of affairs, but which, if it isn't corrected, will probably be the ultimate end of the program. You know, if the Europeans and the Americans decide to hammer down hard because of all of the corruption and all the problems, you're going to be without the program, and there goes all of that income, and there goes all of that funding, which could help with your national budget, which could help with infrastructure, and which could raise the standard of living of the average Kittian. So my wish is that somebody decides to take the political bull by the horns, move forward with it, and change the game by coming up with an administration that you can trust, which might be hard to accomplish, but you've got to start somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kenneth Rijock, for your participation tonight. And Kenneth Rijock, as we introduced him earlier, is the author of The Laundryman, which is a true crime memoir. He told us of his past. His book chronicles the double life he lived, a lavish lifestyle by day, laundering millions in drug money by night, and he was not afraid to say that. Our quotation for tonight, my Straight Dog family, came from our good lady Nevis. A lie has speed, but truth has endurance. To believe in something and not to live it is dishonest. And tonight we know that some shot the messenger and ignored the message. Instead of attacking the source of the bad tidings, which is corruption and those who are corrupted, in particular our leaders. And my Straight Talk family, on Straight Talk we entertain all views. We entertain diverse views. We're not afraid to give everybody their say. But I want to thank all of you for your participation tonight. There are those of you who just listened. There are those of you who just called. And there are those of you who sent emails. Remember, all of you are the ones who make Straight Talk. And for that reason, I say a big, big thank you. I am Ian Batches Liburd, and on behalf of my guest, Kenneth Rijock, we say a very pleasant night to all. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend. It's a holiday weekend. And I'm just reminded that Monday is a holiday and we take a short sabbatical. So until we connect on next week, Thursday, be good to yourselves and to all whom you meet. And remember that whatever your mind conceive, that you will achieve. But first of all, you got to believe. So when you wake in the morning, thank God for the morning light. Thank Him for taking you through the night. And my Straight Talk family, keep moving on. Bye-bye. Until we connect next Thursday.
The morning, I thank God for the morning light. Give Him thanks and praises for taking me safely through the night. For the rest of food